This password looks incredibly strong, doesn't it? Capital letters, a bunch of numbers, incredible amount of symbols. In a real data breach, this is exactly the kind of data that attackers are going to steal. The question is simple. How long do you think it's going to survive? Let's test it. Very rarely do attackers steal plain text passwords. They steal the hashes, and that's what this is right here. This means that there's no login screen, no lockout policy, and no alerts to save you. This lab simulates what happens after a breach from a defender's point of view, someone like myself. We're not hacking anyone here. We're testing whether a password policy actually holds up when things go wrong, and things always go wrong. Security teams do this kind of work all the time. They're not there to break into accounts, but they just want to understand the risk associated with it. If these hashes leak, how much damage could happen? What's the total impact? What's the risk? So we're going to take one realistic password and answer one question. How long does it survive once it's out in the wild? One of the most common tools used for this type of assessment is John the Ripper. It's not malware, it's not an exploit, it's a testing tool used to evaluate password strength. What matters here isn't the tool, it's the behavior being tested, the behavior of weak passwords. Let's start by identifying how this tool works. The program we're using today is John the Ripper. That's John right there. That just basically tells the command line that we're going to use it. From there, we're going to switch over to the actual file that we're going to attack. That's this lab user underscore hash.txt. What this really is, it's just the hash. This is simulating that an attacker grabbed these passwords, these hash files, when they were able to grab it. Now, a lot of times these hash files are actually put on the dark web, and then people are able to grab them up and just have a list of different hashes. The key here is that the hash is associated with the specific user. And so we're not cracking a plain text password, we're actually cracking the hash. And that's what's important to understand here. And finally, we're going to use the word list. That's this giant little thing going on right here. And we're identifying a bunch of words and associated hashes with it. And so this word list has taken offline. It's very, very common. In this case, we're using the rocku.txt. Mine has been upgraded with the newest break that we saw from a data breach about 6 months ago. And so it's got quite an extensive word list associated with it. Let's go ahead and run this command. Now you can see here after it's done running, and it was very, very quick here. It ran through and we can identify this password already right off the gates, and it's Christmas123. And we can see the associated user, which was lab user, which we kind of knew already because that was the username. If you found this kind of lab useful to you, this is exactly what this channel is all about. I want to focus on hands-on security skills that actually show up in real jobs. If you want more labs like this, please consider subscribing. If you found this kind of lab useful to you, this is exactly what this channel is all about. I want to focus on hands-on security skills that actually show up in real jobs. If you want more labs like this, please consider subscribing. This password didn't fail because of an advanced attack or some technological revolution. I mean, let's be honest here. John the Ripper is a pretty standard program on most Kali Linux boxes. As a matter of fact, it comes pre-installed. It failed because the password follows patterns that people use all the time, and people are our worst enemy in cybersecurity. So let's walk this down a little bit, right? The first problem is a common word, right? That common word is typical with all weak passwords. Most people like to start their passwords right off the bat with that common word. And it's very, very predictable, whether it's Christmas or it's, Ford or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. But that common word is almost always right at the beginning, and it's almost always capitalized. So it's almost like you're just handing that to a malicious actor, to an attacker that's going through it. Second, is usually followed by a number. Now, that number can be 1, 2, 3, like in our example, but more often than not, it's something stupid like 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, or even 9, 0. People like to use those common numbers, and they're always in order, and this is a big problem with weak passwords. Finally, they like to use a symbol at the end, and these symbols are never in the middle like they're supposed to. They're always at the end, and the typical symbols associated with these weak passwords are usually exclamation mark or number 1, followed by question mark at number 2, period at number 3, and my personal favorite, the quotation mark at the very end. This simple rule that people follow is absolutely ridiculous, and it really does allow attackers to get it up on pretty much everybody. Now, I know some of you out there are probably looking at your passwords right now going, well, that's okay because I didn't do it at the end. I did it in the middle of a word, and I am very proud of that because I am an awesome person with my passwords, and yet you use 3 for E. That's one of my favorites. I like the exclamation mark for eyes. That's a good one. I like the $ for S's. That no one's ever guessed that one. And of course, the @ for A's. Let's not forget that one, okay? Listen, hackers know these tricks. They know that they're coming in, and when you go through and put those little characters in there, you're not fooling anybody. Matter of fact, most hackers have come up with these little password lists that automatically go through, and for every E, they're putting the number 3 already there. So be cautious of that. Be understanding that that is well known to malicious actors, and you're not getting by with anything. I think one of my favorite things in the world is watching a movie where the hacker on the special edition of action thriller movie part 15 is going through and they start manually guessing passwords like they're some type of superstar because they've been able to gather OSN information from all over the place, and then they just start cracking into it. The problem with that is threefold. One, anytime you're breaking into an online platform, like most of these movies show, it'll actually lock you out after 3 or 4 attempts. So 3 or 4 bad attempts and you're done. And the idea that you can somehow use psychology to guess a password on the first, second, or even 4th try is almost ridiculous, right? What attackers are using are tools just like I showed you today, where they're going through and they're using a word list associated with it. And by going through and using that word list, they can break into the actual password. The problem is that that password word list has to be used on a local system. And so what's going on is an attacker goes through and they manipulate a system and they are able to get into that system and then retrieve this username and password list. Now, those passwords are stored, like I said, in a hash format. And so they're breaking that hash. They're not breaking the password itself. And that's an important differentiator that you, as a cybersecurity expert, need to understand. Remember, hashing protects storage. It doesn't fix weak password choices. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the problem comes into play. So how do I fix these weak passwords? What can I do that will actually help if a data breach occurs and all my username and password information or a hash from my password is actually taken? And the first thing you can do is actually create a better password. Remember that length matters more than complexity. When we have long passwords over 24 to 30 characters long, believe it or not, it impedes an attacker greatly. I think I read a study about a month and a half, 2 months ago that pointed out that if you have a password that's over 32 characters in length, using at least one number and one special character, and it didn't matter where it was, in that entire 32 length password, it would take an average hacker about 100 years to crack. Now, that's 100 years to crack that password. I don't know about you, but I'm probably not going to live over 100 years old. And so that password being incredibly safe, right? Remember that passphrases are going to beat those shorter passwords. And what do I mean by that? You can make a 32-digit password and make it ultra complex and have an incredibly secure password. But are you going to be able to remember it? Even though it's supposed to last 100 years, we still tell you to change it every 12 months. And there's a reason for that. Because typically, if I'm going to use a keylogger or some type of malware to grab that password, simply by changing it once a year, we're resetting that 100 years, we're resetting the complexity, and we know that quantum computing and computer advances are happening all the time. So I want you to use a passphrase. And the reason I want you to use a passphrase is because it's much easier to remember, and you can trade it out a lot quicker, right? So your passphrase could be something like Mary had a little lamb, throw an extra couple numbers in there and actual special characters. It's clever. It's going to last you a long time. It'll last you a full 12 months. And then next in 12 months, you can come up with another passphrase. This is going to stop attackers from being able to break into those passwords. If you can't use a long, complex password for whatever reason, maybe it's too difficult, or even if you can, let's make sure that we're not using patterns. Human beings love patterns. We love them. We love them to death. I'm trying not to give up any secrets here, but I can tell you that a majority of people I know use patterns. They're using patterns like 1, 2, 3. They're using patterns like the same word. I've seen patterns like date of birth. I've seen patterns associated with their favorite color. I've seen patterns everywhere. And if you have a pattern, it's a lot easier to break. And we're not talking about OSN here. We're talking about just basic patterns like we saw here today with Christmas 1, 2, 3 ? Right? We have a word followed by 3 digits followed by a special character. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a pattern. The same pattern that we use 3 for E's, right? We use A for @. You get the point, right? Those are all patterns and we need to stay away from it. The last thing that we could do, probably the best thing that we can do after having a long, complex password, is actually multi-factor authentication. Now, I love multi-factor authentication. You can get it pretty much anywhere. It goes straight to your phone. Something you are, right? It can go through and provide your biometrics. Something you have, that's your phone. Somewhere you are, your location. Something you know, this is typical. That's that password and PIN number, which is what we're concentrating on right now, right? So all of these come into play to allow us to have some multi-factor authentication, which means that it's not just one thing. Now, multi-factor authentication, I want to point this out. It's not a PIN number and a password, because those are two items of something you know. It has to be one item like something you know, followed by something else like something you are. That's biometrics, maybe a thumbprint, iris print. Now, this type of testing shows up in real cybersecurity jobs all the time. SOC analysts use it to estimate breach impact. What is the impact if those password lists are stolen? If I've got a bunch of weak passwords that we can easily get and crack those hashes, that's a major issue. So we want to know that information. Believe it or not, knowledge is power, especially in a cybersecurity environment. Security analysts use it to review password standards. Are we using complex standards like we're supposed to? Are our character links 24 characters long? Are we requiring special characters, requiring numbers? How often requiring those users to change it? How soon can they change it again? Because yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have literally seen people that change their password 12 times in one day so they can reuse the same password they have. Never underestimate the stupidity of people. And then finally, incident responders use it to understand account exposure, right? So this is all comes into play with risk analysis. This isn't hacking. This is just basic security analysis that you are going to see every day when you start working in cybersecurity. Now, if you understood why this password right here failed, then you're already halfway to understanding what it is to be a security professional. Now, if you are studying for professional certification, or maybe you just want to do some home labs on your own, the links and references that I use are provided in the description inside this video. They are affiliate links, but they don't cost you anything to use, and they help me support this channel. Until next time, I'm Dr. K. We'll see you again.